It is undoubtable. The Memphis Grizzlies have the best young core in the league. In fact, their top 5 scorers this season are all 26 years of age or younger. And despite Ja Morant and Dillon Brooks missing stretches of the season, the Grizzlies are sitting as the 4 seed in the Western Conference as we arrive into 2022. However, what if I told you this Memphis Grizzlies team should have never happened? Their young core has some of the unlikeliest paths to the NBA that we've ever seen. Further, this team was insanely lucky putting together all the transactions that landed them there. Here's the story of how the Grizzlies landed their insanely talented young core. First of all, let's start off with Dillon Brooks. He entered the year at age 25 and he's 26 now. Brooks is a 6'7" sweet shooting wing from Canada who moved to Nevada to play high school ball. Then he was lightly recruited. He ended up at Oregon, and they were on the rise, but his other offers ended up just being Virginia Tech and New Mexico. What makes his path to the Grizzlies so unlikely is he played 3 years of college ball only to become a late second-round pick, taken with the 45th pick in the 2017 NBA draft. Second-round picks are not supposed to blossom into the type of player Brooks has become. But what you'll want to know is what's more unlikely is the trace of the transactions that got him to the Grizzlies in the first place. It all started when he was drafted by the Houston Rockets, who acquired his rights from the Portland Trail Blazers by trading Thomas Robinson in 2013 for Kostas Papakalou, Marko Todorovic, and a 2015 and 2017 second-round pick. Interestingly enough, that 2015 pick was surprisingly Richaun Holmes. I mean, what did the Trailblazers do losing out on those two guys? Memphis traded Houston a 2018 second-round pick in order to get the rights to Dillon Brooks. And interestingly enough, that 2018 pick turned out to be current teammate and the next subject of our video, DAnthony Melton. Even after that, the Grizzlies almost traded Dillon Brooks. Or you can say they made a simple mistake, depending on who you ask, when during the 2018 season, he was almost moved in a 3-team deal with Phoenix and Washington, only to have the deal stopped because Memphis had actually wanted to trade Marshawn Brooks. The last name is the source of the confusion. At the end of the season, every GM of the teams involved in that 3-team deal was either fired or demoted. And somehow, some way, Dillon Brooks persisted to become the great two-way player that he is for a Western Conference contending team. Now let's jump into DAnthony Melton. Melton was never supposed to be a Memphis Grizzly. Well, because first of all, they traded him for Dillon Brooks, a trade the Grizzlies, I might say, obviously won. But also because Melton's college career was ruined. Melton came from USC's backyard, signed with them during his freshman year, and battled the number 1 pick Markelle Fultz out of Washington and the number 2 pick Lonzo Ball out of UCLA in the Pac-12. Prior to his sophomore season, however, as he attempted to return, members of the USC coaching staff were charged with fraud and corruption, with allegations saying Melton's family was financially incentivized to have Melton play at USC. The scandal was wide-reaching at a lot of schools, impacting a lot of athletes, not just at USC, but other places like Auburn as well. And ultimately, Melton never played for USC again, and in February of his sophomore year, declared for the NBA draft. He was picked 46th in the second round, again by the Houston Rockets, who, as I said, received the pick from the Grizzlies. Melton went to work right away, scrapping to stay in the league. He went from Houston to Phoenix, then Phoenix back to Memphis, and somehow, some way, he is again a Memphis Grizzly. Now, we dive into Desmond Bane, one of the 2 unranked high school players who are dominating from this team. Bane was more likely to be a baseball player growing up and was in fact talented in the sport. He really enjoyed baseball, but he really was passionate about basketball. However, he would not receive his first Division I offer until his senior year and picked TCU after being unranked his whole recruiting cycle. He played all 4 years, despite his team never really being on the national radar to compete for a national championship. And he grew every year, reaching second team All Big 12 as a junior and first team Big 12 as a senior before declaring for the NBA draft. being taken as a first-round pick, number 30th overall. And Desmond Bane, we finally talk about a first-round pick. To describe even more how improbable his journey was, Bane was the first pick from TCU taken in the first round since 1995, over 25 years. He got drafted by Boston only to be traded to the Grizzlies, who dealt multiple second-rounders in a multiple-team deal that brought the Celtics' Enes Kanter, now Enes Freedom, from the Portland Trailblazers. Bane shot lights out from three his rookie season, and the rest is history. This brings us now to Jaren Jackson Jr., who in fact is the only player with the basketball pedigree at the prep and college level to have the hype of a superstar. Jackson's journey to NBA success makes a lot of sense, actually. His father played in the NBA. He is also one of the few human beings to be 6'11" on the planet, and he played ball at Michigan State. What makes things unlikely for him to be a Grizzly, however, is that he was drafted 4th overall. Memphis was in the tank heading into that season. They had the second worst record and had great odds to get a top 3 pick. In fact, if things broke correctly, they would have had the number 2 overall pick in the 2018 draft. Instead, they got really lucky, and the Sacramento Kings got the number 2 overall pick. The Kings selected the consensus number 2 pick in Marvin Bagley, and it seems like the Grizzlies dodged a bullet. Yes, with that second overall pick, they could have had Luka or Trae Young, but then who knows if that impacts what they would have done the following year in securing the best player on their team, which was unlikely for the team and the player. We all know at this point, Ja Morant was lightly recruited from South Carolina, even though he played AAU ball with Zion, 1 million followers on IG Williamson. He went on to be unranked and lightly recruited, even though he had a track record of putting in the work. Main reason, he was short. Even though he is known for his fantastic athleticism, Ja Morant didn't dunk a basketball till his senior year of high school, and maybe that explains why some of his dunk attempts look like a guy still trying to learn the limits of his body. But Morant blazed through that to Murray State, and in 2 years had bloomed into a top 3 pick. Memphis, however, wasn't that bad of a team at the time, but this was the year that the odds were flattened for the first time. Memphis had just a 6.3% chance of getting the second overall pick, but somehow they did, moving right behind the Pelicans. And yet some would say they came out with the best player in the draft. Memphis is about grit and determination. Through hard work and luck, these players and this team found themselves in the right place at the right time, perfected their rebuild, and they could be on to something great for years to come. With that said, this core is locked up for at least another season, and Memphis will likely have a lot of cap space in the next offseason where they can add another piece or trade for one. In Memphis right now, there's nowhere to go but up. Thank you for sticking all the way through to the end. Here's 2 more videos. You can also subscribe to the channel or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DannyDoSports. Holla at your boy.